There comes a moment in life when it feels like nothing is working anymore. No matter how hard you try, something collapses. Plans fail, relationships strain, inner stability disappears, and a quiet thought begins to form. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Most people interpret this moment as failure, as punishment, as proof that they are behind, broken, or not strong enough. But what if life is not punishing you at all? What if this is the moment where something deeper is being tested? You were never promised an easy life. You were promised a real one. And a real life does not exist to keep you comfortable. It exists to reveal what you are standing on when comfort disappears. This is why challenges return again and again. Just when things settle, something shifts. Just when you feel safe, the ground moves. Just when you think you understand, life asks another question. Not to break you, but to expose what you are rooted in. Most people build their inner world the same way, on circumstances, on roles, on identities, on expectations. And when those things change, everything collapses. Not because life is cruel, but because the foundation was never solid. You can feel this collapse as anxiety, as exhaustion, as emotional instability, as the sense that you are constantly reacting. Life pushes and you fall, again and again. The problem is not the storm. The storm was always coming. The problem is that most people never learned how to stand when the storm arrives. This is why life keeps testing you, not to see how much you can endure, but to reveal whether your sense of self depends on conditions. Because anything that depends on conditions will eventually collapse. You may notice something painful during these times. When things go wrong, your mind becomes louder. Stories multiply. Fear accelerates. Thoughts repeat themselves endlessly, and the suffering feels personal. But look closely. Is it really the situation that hurts, or the resistance to what is happening? Is it the event, or the story built around it? Life is not here to make you happy. Happiness is unstable by nature. Life is here to bring you into contact with something far deeper than happiness. Something that does not rise and fall with circumstances. This is where most people misunderstand spiritual teachings. They expect peace to mean nothing difficult ever happens. But real peace appears in the middle of difficulty, not instead of it. You are allowed to feel sadness. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to be affected. Awakening does not turn you into stone. It simply reveals that pain is not the deepest layer of who you are. There can be tears on the surface, and stillness underneath. There can be loss in the world and peace beneath the loss. Not emotional numbness, but depth. This depth is what life is testing for. Not how positive you are, not how spiritual you sound, not how well you perform, but whether there is something in you that remains when everything external is shaken. When life shakes you, it does not ask for answers. It asks for honesty. Not the kind of honesty you perform for others, but the kind you cannot escape when everything familiar disappears. In these moments you discover whether your inner stability was real or borrowed. Most people confuse stability with control. As long as things behave, they feel fine. As long as plans work, emotions stay regulated. As long as relationships remain predictable, there is peace. But that peace is conditional, and life always tests what is conditional. This is why challenges feel repetitive, not because you are failing the lesson, but because the lesson was never about fixing circumstances. It was about revealing where your sense of self is anchored. Life removes one layer at a time. First the external supports, then the internal stories, then the identities you thought were solid. And with each layer removed, the same fear appears in a new form. That fear says, I can't handle this. I'm not strong enough. I'm losing myself. But what if what feels like losing yourself is actually losing what you were never meant to stand on? There is a difference between being affected and being destroyed. A storm can move the surface of the ocean without disturbing its depths. Most people live entirely on the surface, so every wave feels catastrophic. This is why life pushes harder when you resist less. Not to punish you, but because resistance was the only thing holding the structure together. When resistance drops, truth becomes unavoidable. You may notice something subtle here. The more you stop fighting what is happening, the less personal it feels. Pain still arises. Sadness still moves through the body. But the inner narrative begins to quiet. This is not resignation. This is not giving up. It is the recognition that fighting reality has never produced peace, and that something deeper than the mind is already capable of holding this moment. Life does not test your positivity, it tests your depths. It does not care how spiritual you sound, how many teachings you know, or how calm you appear on the outside. It tests whether you are rooted beyond circumstance. This rooting is not something you achieve. It is something you discover when everything else collapses. You don't dig toward it intentionally. Life forces the digging when the surface can no longer support you. This is why crises often awaken people. not because suffering is sacred, but because comfort keeps attention shallow. When comfort disappears, awareness naturally moves inward. You may begin to notice a quiet presence that remains untouched even when emotions rise. It does not comment, it does not judge, it does not explain. It simply notices. This presence does not stop pain, it does not prevent loss, it does not guarantee outcomes, but it changes the relationship to experience entirely. You are no longer drowning in life, you are witnessing life moving. This is the foundation life is testing. Not whether storms come, they always will, but whether there is something in you that remains steady while storms pass. Not rigid, not numb, but deeply, quietly present. At a certain point you stop asking life to improve. Not because you've given up, but because you begin to see that improvement was never the answer. What you were really asking for was relief from instability. And now you're discovering that stability was never meant to come from life cooperating. This is when something quiet becomes noticeable. Not dramatic, not exciting. A simple sense that you are still here, even when answers disappear, even when certainty dissolves, even when the future offers no reassurance. You realize that life has been asking the same question all along, not through words, but through events. Can you remain present without knowing what comes next? Most people mistake presence for passivity, but presence is not weak, it is not resignation. Presence is the strength to stay open when the mind wants to close. Here you stop negotiating with reality. You stop trying to make pain mean something. You stop demanding that suffering justify itself. And strangely, this is where suffering begins to lose its grip. You may still feel grief, you may still feel disappointment, you may still feel fear, but these feelings no longer define the space you live in. They pass through without taking ownership of your entire being. This is the difference between being broken and being opened. Brokenness collapses inward. Openness allows experience to move freely. Life tests this openness relentlessly, not to exhaust you, but to reveal it. You begin to understand something essential. Life is not asking you to win. It is not asking you to succeed spiritually. It is not asking you to transcend humanity. It is asking you to be real. Being real means allowing uncertainty without rushing to escape it. It means allowing vulnerability without trying to appear strong. It means letting life be incomplete without filling the gaps with explanations. This is where peace begins to appear, not as a feeling, but as a background, a quiet stability that does not depend on circumstances behaving. You no longer measure your progress by how little you suffer. You measure it by how honestly you meet what is here. Even confusion, even doubt, even moments of collapse. Life continues to test you, but now the tests feel different. They no longer ask, "Can you endure this?" They ask, "Can you stay present without turning away?" This presence does not belong to you. You did not create it. You did not earn it. It reveals itself when everything you thought was holding you together falls away. And this is the quiet truth few people ever realize. Life was never against you. It was never trying to break you. It was slowly guiding you towards something unshakable. So if you find yourself tired, tested, and unsure whether you are failing, pause. Notice what is still here while the story of failure plays. That presence is the foundation life has been testing all along. Not something you must protect, not something you must strengthen, simply something you must stop overlooking.